Hello all, a great evening to all of you present here. This is actually my heartiest welcome to all of you joining this particular daily news analysis session. So as all of you know, this is Sureka Bhaskar presenting to you the daily news analysis on behalf of the Narayana IAS Academy. Okay. So to just give a brief about the recently completed prelims masterclass. So we have actually, as prelims is round the corner, that is 2025 prelims, we will be writing on 25th of May, right? So as it's down the corner, as it's round the corner, we had actually picked up the most important topics of current affairs, which we actually discussed across various, themes as well as sub-themes, right? So we've covered environment, ecology, we covered all the other subjects, and I specifically covered ecology apart from the government schemes, initiatives, the international relations, and so on. So please do check out whenever time permits, because it will be a one-stop solution for your quick as well as your smart revision. Okay. So for today's DNA discussion, we've actually picked up very important articles from both the Hindu as well as the Indian Express that are extremely important and relevant for the upcoming examination and for the future as well. Okay. So let us actually start our discussion with this particular quote. Okay. So it says, do important things now before they become urgent. So this is a very important takeaway for each and every one of us. Okay, whether you are an aspirant, specifically when you are an aspirant, what happens is that we try to procrastinate and delay our processes, right? For example, the preparation or a particular chapter that we have to complete today gets procrastinated tomorrow because we know that we have 6 full attempts, or that is spread across 10 full years for us. Okay, so because of that, what happens, we actually while away, so we exhaust 1 or 2 attempts, and after that we are over the age of 25, where the pinch of the pressure actually kicks in, specifically in a stereotypical society like India, where men actually seek employment. That is where you will be in the having a cat on the wall situation, whether to be employed or to follow your passion or aspiration to become a bureaucrat. Okay, so that time there will be lot of pressure. So that is why what we need to do is plan everything accordingly, and we have to act immediately. Okay, it's still not too late to decide our fate. Okay, so we have to strive and do everything at the earliest, otherwise tomorrow it will be an emergency. Okay, in terms of your career, your decisions, your family, relationship status, etc. So that is why it says, do important things now. Okay, specifically your preparation or your career decisions now before they become an emergency in the future. So with this important takeaway, let us move forward and see what are all the topics that we have picked up for discussion today in our daily news analysis. So let's move forward. Okay. So the first article that we'll be picking up is, a caste census is not a silver bullet for social justice. So here, we will be discussing about this concept of caste census. So usually, what do you mean by census? Census is nothing but it is the official count or the survey of a country's population. So here you actually get details or detailed information about the population which is present in a country, in terms of their literacy, in terms of their language, in terms of their occupation, the gender, as well as age, sometimes caste, religion, etc. Okay, so based on this, you actually take the official count, and that is called as a census. So in India, we have the national census, that is the decadal census, which takes place once in every 10 years. The previous census actually took place in the year 2011, and in 2021 it was disrupted due to the COVID pandemic. Okay, so now it is yet to come into force. That is why now the government has actually declared that this particular census, where the count of the population will be enumerated by the caste of the population as well, specifically the other backward classes, because the SCs and STs, the data is already that gets generated alongside the decadal census and through other surveys. But specifically with respect to the OBCs and the EBCs, that is the extremely backward classes, now what happens, the census will be enumerated by the caste data as well. Okay, or the caste status as well. So this is what the government has said. So here we'll be understanding about what is census, what do you mean by caste census, why it is important, what are the arguments against the caste census, because that will likely result in politicization of the sorry, casteization, that is what your politics will actually revolve around caste. Okay, so politicization of the caste will be done, and casteism will be, what to say, determined by your politics. So all this actually runs hand in hand. Okay, so here we'll be discussing about that. And then moving on, the second article has been picked up from page number 9 of the Hindu, where India to appraise the FATF, that is Financial Action Task Force, of the latest evidence on the terror infrastructure in Pakistan. That is, recently what happened is that we had the attack by the Pakistan, terrorist groups on the Falgam region of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, where so many civilians had actually died, and after that, what happened? Pakistan had launched an attack, right? So because of Pakistan attack, we actually retaliated. Okay, targeting the base camps of the terrorists, okay, but through this operation Sindoor. Okay, so now what has happened is that India actually has reported to FATF, that is the Financial Action Task Force, which is an international organization which looks after the performance of the countries in avoiding money laundering as well as financing the terror activities. It has said that India will be providing evidences against Pakistan, because what does Pakistan do? By or through the process of the financial instruments, or you can say the loan instruments of the IMF, they actually get the loan sanction, and India has doubts that these loans are actually used for building their defense infrastructure, and thereby, what to say, promoting terrorism. Okay, so this is why India has actually said that it will come up with a report or the evidence. Okay, next, moving on, we will be looking into another article, that is, our bodies perform a kind of mRNA editing and we don't know why. So this is from the science section of the Hindu, which talks about the process of gene editing. Okay, so what we'll be discussing here is the mRNA editing. Okay, so here we'll be discussing about the concept of these genetic material, that is your DNA as well as your RNA. Okay, so here, how, what is the function of DNA, what is the function of RNA, what is this method of transcription, how the proteins are formed, whether it is delayed in the human beings or not, and what happens in case of certain fungi, specifically the Ganoderma. So all that we will discuss over here. Now moving forward, the last article for the day has been picked up from page number 12 of the Indian Express, the Northeast-Kolkata route via Myanmar, not Bangladesh. Okay, so after this terror attack, since India had actually some kind of friction with Bangladesh because they actually took their stance or support for Pakistan. Okay, so this is why India is actually not in good terms with that of Bangladesh. So India thought that, okay, let us now increase or expand our connectivity agreement with respect to that of Myanmar, okay, in order to reach our northeast. So we will prevent, or you can say, let us actually stop or curb from moving through this Bangladesh route to reach the northeast, but let us actually take another turn towards Myanmar for our northeastern connectivity. So this is where we will be discussing about the Kaladan multimodal connectivity network. Okay, so this is what we'll be discussing, and towards the end we will solve the practice questions that were actually discussed on Saturday, and also an mains approach question. Okay, so now let's quickly get started with the first article. A caste census is not a silver bullet for social justice. So here we will be discussing about what you mean by caste census. Specifically, we'll discuss about the socio-economic caste census. This is your SECC. Okay, and here this is from GS paper 1, population and associated issues, as well as GS paper 2, welfare for the vulnerable sections of the population. So with respect to the caste system, there have been questions that have been asked by the UPSC in the mains examination. Specifically in 2018, if you see, you have caste system is assuming new identities and associational forms, hence caste systems cannot be eradicated in India. So here we will actually have to analyze how important caste is actually a part of the social fabric. Okay, now let us move forward and understand why this particular article is in the news. So, the union government has recently stated that there will be inclusion of caste enumeration in the upcoming national census. Okay, so the previous census was in 2011 and the 2021 census got interrupted by the COVID-19. So, whatever is the next national census, we will actually have the enumeration of the caste of the population also. This is a significant move, okay, since 1931, that the census includes the detailed caste wise data. Okay, so because if you see, after independence, that is since 1951, the census that had actually been taking place, all these have been the national population census. Okay, so here also there was no data on the OBCs, but there was actually significant data with respect to SCs as well as STs. Okay, so the what to say, the target groups for the welfare or giving the benefits of the welfare schemes were not identified properly. So that is what is actually the situation after 1951. However, since 1931, that is your socio-economic caste census, which actually spoke about the caste situation over here, was based on the 1931 data, okay, which is very, very outdated, right? So this is what they are saying, since 1931. Now we are going to come up again along with the count of the population. We will also bring about or enumerate that with the caste data. Okay, so aimed at enumerating the OBC specifically. So this is what is the article talking about. So let us talk about what is a caste census. This is also known as a socio-economic caste census. Okay, and it is a study that talks about the socio-economic status of the people in the rural as well as your urban households. Okay, and gathers information about how is the distribution of caste within these sections of the population in both the rural as well as the urban areas. Okay, if you see, I told you every decadal census that took place since 1951 to 2011, this has actually published data on scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, but not on the OBCs as well as the EBCs. Okay, so but if you see before this, okay, so every census until 1931 had data on the caste. However, in 1941, the caste-based data was collected, but it was not published. And also, if you see the SECC data, that is the socio-economic caste census data of 2001, was based on the 1931 census of India. Okay, so this is what is the caste census. Now, if you see difference between the population census and SECC. So, what is a population census? This basically is a head count, or you can say the count of the Indian population, whereas the socio-economic caste census is to identify who are all the beneficiaries. Okay, beneficiaries of what? The support that is given by the state or the center. Okay, so since the population census is carried out under the Census Act, another difference. Okay, so population census is carried out by the Census Act, and all that data remains very, very confidential, whereas the information in the SECC is open for the use by the government departments, and based on that they actually decide the beneficiaries who has to get the benefits or who is actually eligible for a particular scheme and so on. Okay, so which households is getting benefited from the schemes. Now, if you see the department which is responsible for carrying out the SECC 2011 is the Ministry of Rural Development, and also this is nothing but a comprehensive door-to-door enumeration across the country. Okay, so it talks about, or you can say they collect data about which caste a particular household actually belongs to. So this has three important components. One is nothing but the census in the rural areas. Next one, census in the urban areas. Next one is the caste census. Okay, so in the rural areas, it is by the Department of Rural Development, and in the urban areas, it is under the Ministry of Housing and the Urban Poverty Alleviation. Okay, And then the caste census, this is by the Ministry of Home Affairs. Okay, so here Registrar General of India, very important, Registrar General of India and the Census Commissioner of India are responsible for carrying out this exercise. However, the coordination of the entire process is done by the Ministry of Rural Development. Okay, now let's move forward in understanding about further, what is SECC about. So we actually saw this first SECC 2011 was based on the 1931 data, right, in order to understand what is the socio-economic status, because after that we did not have any kind of data with respect to the OBCs and the EBCs, that is the extremely backward classes. And also this particular census was actually the first paperless census in India. Okay, and this was conducted by using the electrical devices that they were carrying, and this did not publish the caste data. Okay, so the SECC 2011, right, so the mechanism and the process actually got finished and it got published in 2016 but was not released to the public. It was not released in the public. Okay, why? Because the government actually said there were number of flaws that were associated and hence this was unreliable. Okay, so you cannot rely on this solely in order to give reservation or in order to take policy decisions. So this is what the government actually said. Now, moving forward, let us see arguments in support of a caste census. So, when we have enough data about caste census, what happens here is that there can be affirmative action. Okay, so here when the accurate data is, actually available, okay, on the socio-economic status of various caste groups, specifically the OBCs, this will enable the targeted policy measures. Okay, so what is called as targeted policy measures is possible. So, for example, if you actually say the Bihar caste survey, which was actually recently conducted in 2023, it provided the data on OBCs as well as EBCs. It actually found out that in that particular state, 63% were other backward classes, of which the extremely backward classes constituted around 36%. And already, whatever, there are a lot of intra-group inequalities within the OBC section itself. There are people who actually get maximum benefits like the economic opportunities, the political participation, etc. But the others are grieved. Okay, so they do not have any kind of any kind of opportunity. That is why there are intergroup inequalities that actually exist. Okay, so depending, when you have accurate data, then the resource allocation or the distribution of wealth becomes easier. So this is another reason in support, or you can say this is another point for supporting this particular caste census. Okay, so for example, in Jharkhand, if you see, the OBCs are divided into backward class 1 and backward class 2. So depending on this, what happens is that the targeted welfare for more disadvantaged subsection is actually given. So what is another argument in favor of caste census is that you can legitimize the welfare programs in the court. Okay, so whenever the court is actually scrutinizing the actions that is actually taken by the center or the state, they rely on evidence as well as data. Okay, so that is why a proper caste census actually gives you scientific data with legal sanctity. Therefore, there is this strengthens what the government's ability to defend the welfare programs. Okay, next one is fulfilling the constitutional mandate. If you see Article 340 of the Constitution, this actually mandates the investigation into the conditions of the backward classes. Okay, so it recommends the action. So here the caste census actually plays a very important role, because here it makes sure or it ensures that the social or socially justified policies are in place. Okay, targeting the OBCs and the other target groups. So this is what is the arguments for the caste census. What are the arguments against the caste census? This can actually result in, as I told you, the casteization of politics. Okay, so here basically politics will actually run on caste. Okay, and here what happens, there will be vote bank politics, where the political parties will actually focus on the larger backward class groups, okay, where which will eventually serve as a vote bank that will enable them to win, or their party or the particular political leader to win. Okay, then caste census may reinforce the caste based identities. Okay, so instead of promoting equality or an egalitarian society, what happens is that there will be caste based identities. Example, you have conflict between the Malas as well as the Madigas in Telangana. Okay, so one group is actually focusing on agriculture, and the other is, they are a group of people who have what to say, the profession like cobbler, etc. Okay, and other activities, but they themselves actually have a lot of differences in between them. So this may also lead to increased demand. So if I'm actually giving reservation for one particular community based on the data, then the other community can also demand, okay, of the society, and then that actually leads to where political unrest, or you can say the civil unrest. Okay, so that this will also shake the political stability. So here what happens, there will be protests, and this will hamper the law and order, and also there can be caste related violence. Caste related violence can also be there, such as the demand for reservation by the Gujars. Okay, so these are the people from in certain parts of central India as well as North India. So you can find them in states like Madhya Pradesh, then Rajasthan, then Uttar Pradesh, then Haryana, and so on. Okay, next one. Let's move towards next one. So apart from all these social impacts like inequality, etc., they also have the methodological, or you can say the methodological constraints are actually there. What is the method you're going to use, whether it's going to be a laborious process, whether you have sufficient software in order to whether you are the digital infrastructure is well equipped, whether you have a proper database, whether the data is disseminated to the governments as well as the departments for dissemination of the welfare services, etc. All that is very, very complex. Okay, so that is why we have constraints with respect to the methods, and also proper definition of castes, and what are there are a number of castes and subcastes which are actually present. So it becomes very cumbersome. If you leave out certain caste, also it becomes a problem. If you include a caste which already has the benefits of higher representation, that also becomes a problem. Okay, next one. Census alone cannot drive the policy. See, data to an extent. So data on which are all the socio-economic backward classes, it can actually to an extent decide, or it can help you arrive or narrow down to what the problem is. But unless you actually have a very, very strong governance framework or the public mobilization, here what happens is that it is the political will that actually has to help in establishing an egalitarian society through just reforms, just social reforms. The next one, underutilization of the existing data. Already we have numerous reports and surveys like the NSSO survey, the NFHS Family Health Survey, and commissions which have actually come up with the backwardness of the STs as well as the OBCs, but still there are no transformative national level reforms that have actually taken place. Okay, these have been very, very minimal is what the article is saying. So we actually discussed about what do you mean by national census. So what do you mean by national census? It is actually the count of the population, the survey of the population of country, which gives detailed information on various parameters like the language, literacy, then the age, the occupation, religion, caste, etc. And since 1951, the national decadal census has actually been taking place, and they have been providing sufficient data only on the SCs and STs, whereas the SECC socio-economic caste census, which was released in 2011, was based on 1930 one data, because by 1941 all this providing information regarding the other caste actually stopped. Okay, then we saw what do you mean by the caste census or socio-economic caste census, why it is important, and what are the arguments against it. Okay, now we will move on to the next article, that is India to apprise FATF, that is the Financial Action Task Force, on the latest evidence of terror infrastructure in Pakistan. Okay, so what are the Indian authorities actually are planning to do is that they are going to provide the evidence. Okay, so provide evidence to the Financial Action Task Force. This is an international agency. This is actually a watchdog which will have a control on the access of what is the country's access to the loans by the international bodies in order to carry out their functions. For example, recently IMF had actually given out loan. So FATF will see if that loan money is actually used for building the terror infrastructure or not. Okay, so this is what it is. So here we will be discussing about what is FATF and the concept of money laundering, okay, converting the black into white. Okay, then this is important for prelims as well as mains examination under GS paper 3, security, money laundering and its prevention. So already we had a question in the year 2016 with respect to that of money laundering, and they had asked what are the different measures to tackle the problem of money laundering both at the national and the international levels. Okay, now let's move forward and understand why this particular topic is in the news. So as I told you, India plans to submit fresh evidence to the Financial Action Task Force, which is a global watchdog that monitors the countries or how the countries are preventing the terror financing and money laundering. So now let us understand what do you mean by FATF. But before that, let's see, a recent terror attack actually took place in Falgaon, okay, in Jammu and Kashmir. This actually resulted in the killing of so many tourists. Okay, suppose that what happened, India retaliated through this operation Sindoor, so where we conducted precision strikes which is only targeting on the terror bases inside Pakistan. So now India wants to present a proof of Pakistan's ongoing support to the terror groups, to the FATF. Okay, so now let us quickly understand what is FATF. As I already told you, an intergovernmental organization found in 1989. Again, it's an initiative of the G7 nations. You need to know which are the G7 nations. You have the US, then you have UK, then you actually have France, then you have Italy, then you have Germany, okay, and then you have Canada, and finally you have Japan. So these are your G7 nations. To this, if you add Russia, it becomes G8. Okay, so these are the list of countries you need to know. So it was actually the initiative of G7 in order to develop the policies that will help in combating money laundering, that is converting the black money into white money, or you can say generation of assets through illegal what to say transfer of money. So this is what is called as money laundering. And in 2001, it was earlier focused on combating money laundering, and then terror financing was actually included in the year 2001. Okay, so to combat money laundering, terrorist financing and other related threats to the integrity of the international financial system. It is headquartered in Paris, France, and the highest body is the plenary body. So that is the FATF plenary is the decision making body of the FATF, and then this actually meets thrice a year. Okay, now let's move forward. The current number of members of FATF is actually 40. Whether India is a part of it or not, please do mention whether India is a part of it or not. And apart from the 40 members, the 40 members actually include the individual countries alongside the European Commission as well as the Gulf Cooperation Council. Yes, India did become a member of FATF in 2010. So there are different categories, okay. So it places the countries depending upon how much is the percentage of how much is it under obligation, or you can say there are different categories based on the compliance that a country actually has with the international standards for anti-money laundering activities or combating this financing of terror activities. Okay, so let us see what are the different categories. First one is regular follow-up. Okay, so here it actually includes the countries which regularly or which comply with the recommendations of FATF. Okay, but there are very minute or small areas of non-compliance. Okay, so these countries actually fall under regular follow-up, and India is placed over here. So next one, enhanced follow-up. So this is, for the countries which actually report what is their progress with respect to anti-money laundering activities with respect, around 2 to 3 years. Okay, because they actually have a larger deficiency or compliance deficiency or higher risks. Okay, then we move on to the blacklist. These are the high risk jurisdiction, and this is subjected to call of action. Okay, there is call for action for these particular areas because of their strategic deficiencies they actually have. Okay, the next one is the grey list, and these are jurisdictions which require increased monitoring. They require increased monitoring, and they have to regularly work and report to this particular FATF, okay, regarding their strategic deficiencies, and they are subject to increased monitoring. Next one is no follow-up. These are the countries with no deficiencies. They do not have any kind of deficiencies. Okay, and this is where the mutual evaluation actually takes place to just make sure that their system is running properly. Okay, so these are the different categories of the countries which are actually placed based on their anti-terror funding activities. Okay, next one, let's actually move forward and see what are the key highlights related to India from the FATS mutual evaluation. So regular follow-up category, I told you India is one of the countries along with the 4 other G20 countries with UK, France, Italy as well as Russia. Okay, and FATF acknowledged India's efforts with respect to each category. For example, we are mitigating the risks from the money laundering as well as terror financing through what key measures are by implementation of PMLA Act, that is Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and also we have establishment of Financial Intelligence Unit in India. Okay, this is number one. Next one, we are transitioning from an entirely cash-based economy to a digital economy, and key measures we can see through our Digital India initiative. Then we have the RuPay cards as well as the BHIM. This is nothing but Bharat Interface for Money app. Then moving forward, implementing the Jandan, Aadhaar as well as Mobile Trinity. Okay, so here providing the bank accounts, providing the Aadhaar biometric identification system, and Digital India's push for mobile connectivity as well as services in the rural areas also. So this was actually appreciated by FATF. Next one, increasing the financial inclusion as well as the digital transactions through the unified payment systems, that is your UPI system, as well as the digital payment infrastructure. Digital payment infrastructure. Okay, next one is what? We will see areas of improvement, however, are recommended by FATF. What are they? You have to strengthen the supervision and implementation of preventive measures in some of the non-financial areas, and whether there are any kind of delays in the prosecutions of the people with respect to the terror funding, etc. You need to work on that and make it happen quickly. Okay, and next one, you have to ensure that the counter financing of terrorism measures for the non-profit organizations are implemented based on the a risk-based approach. Okay, so this is what it is. Now moving on to the third article. So our bodies perform a kind of mRNA editing. We don't know why. So here we will be discussing about mRNA, important for your prelims as well as mains, GS paper 3, science and technology. Before that, let us actually see if we have any comments in the comment section. Okay. So what happens in our body is that, so our body actually has the genetic material, right? So we have DNA. DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. So this is what is DNA. So you do not have the ribose sugar. So deoxyribose. So this is what is called as DNA. This is actually a double helix structure. Okay, so this is how it is, and it has bases over here. These are called as adenine. You know, you have adenine, then you have cytosine, you have the thymine as well as the guanine. Okay, so these are the bases that it actually has, or the protein bases you can say. Okay, so DNA is like, what to say, the genetic material, as in it actually determines on what is the color of the eye, what is the height you have, you know, then what you say, the broad shoulders that you inherited from your ancestors or your parents. So all that is determined by this genetic material, that is DNA. So it is kind of a recipe book. Okay, so this actually consists of different recipes. Now this recipe has to be followed by someone in order to prepare the food, that is the protein, right? So that work is done by the RNA. So here it stands for ribonucleic acid. So RNA, it is a single stranded structure. So here also it has protein bases A, C, that is adenine, you have cytosine. Instead of thymine, you have the uracil as well as the guanine. Okay. So here the work of the RNA is to copy or to follow this recipe and make the protein. And this making of the protein through this process is called as the transcription. So this is called what? This is called as transcription. So sometimes what happens, the recipe for making the protein is actually not the same. It is not just the exact replica. Here the RNA, which actually happens to be a chef or the cook, can make some kind of a change over there. Okay, so this is called as the mRNA editing, and this is actually very, very surprising what the scientists have actually found. Okay, so this editing immediately happens after the transcription process, but in some of the organisms, for example in this case a fungi, Ganoderma, it actually does not happen very, very quickly. So that is what is actually spoken about over here. Okay, so this is what it is, and why that delay and how the change actually happens, or the transcription or the editing over there actually happens, is that this adenosine is converted to inosine. Okay, and in the body it reads like the inosine as guanosine. Okay, so this is how it actually happens. So now let us quickly see. Okay, so the body reads this particular inosine as the guanosine. Okay, so there, while making proteins, what happens, this is the change that actually happens. So this A to I is, this is called as A to I editing. Don't get confused, this is too technical. Just remember what is the basic function of the DNA as well as the RNA. Now you have questions with respect to that of your RNA, and this time probably I am also expecting a question on mRNA, because the Nobel Prize for biophysiology has actually been won by the research in the RNA only. So you need to know what's the difference between the RNA as well as the DNA, how it functions, etc. So here you have a question on RNA interference in the year 2016 in your prelims examination. Let's move forward. So recently, especially in fungi like the Ganoderma, they reveal that our bodies perform a kind of mRNA editing. We actually saw what do you mean by mRNA editing, and especially the A to I, that is adenosine to the inosine type. So what is it? The adenosine to the inosine type. So let's quickly read about this. So surprisingly, it is seen that this editing doesn't happen immediately after the transcription, but it is delayed. Okay, so this is delayed, occurring at specific stages of what? Growth or stress. Okay, so during this period, either growth or stress, this entire process of mRNA editing is actually delayed. Okay, this contradicts the idea that organisms always seek simpler, more efficient process, and it suggests deeper evolutionary or regulatory significance. Not important. What is important for you is to understand about this particular RNA. RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. This is an important molecule, okay, again, that plays several key roles. It actually codes, that is, it notes down what is actually written in the DNA. So it just takes down, it breaks it down, decodes, that is, understands it, and then what does it do? It regulates, and it is an expression of the genes. It is similar to DNA but has few differences, because this is single stranded, because DNA is actually double stranded. Then RNA contains a sugar called ribose, which is actually absent in DNA. That is why it is called as deoxyribose. Also, this one actually consists of A, C, U as well as G. Okay, so U here is called as uracil, which it is, this U replaces thymine of DNA. Also, RNA's main job is to convert the instructions which are present in the DNA into proteins, which are essential for various functions of the body. So now I hope you understood what is the difference between the RNA as well as DNA. Okay. Now let's move forward and understand what are the different types of RNA. So first one is the messenger RNA. This is for encoding or reading or making the protein. So this is the messenger RNA. The second one is transfer RNA. Okay, so this actually acts as an adapter between mRNA as well as an amino acid. Next one is ribosomal RNA. This forms the ribosome. Next one is small nuclear RNA. This is what is called as snRNA. So this functions in various processes like splicing, that is cutting down, etc. Next one is small nucleolar RNA. This is snORNA. Okay. So here it facilitates the further chemical modification of the RNAs. Next one, microRNA, regulates the expression of genes. Next one is small interference RNA. This actually silences the expression of gene. The next one is long non-coding RNA. This also regulates the gene expression. So these are the different kinds of RNA. So as we saw, mRNA editing is nothing but after the transcriptional process, okay, after making of the proteins, here in which the nucleotide sequence of mRNA molecule is chemically modified. I told you, right? It is modified before it is translated into protein. Here modifies the codons, possibly changing the amino acid. The sequence of the amino acid is actually changed, okay. So how it is changed? A to I, adenosine to inosine. So here what happens? This inosine is read as guanosine. So this is what actually happens. Then the C2U, that is cited into urine. You understood what is the mRNA editing, right? Don't go into too much technical details of it, okay? Then moving into mechanism of A to I editing. So after the transcription of the DNA, the mRNA molecule contains the adenosine. We know this, right? They have the adenosine residues, and enzymes called as ADARs, that is the adenosine deaminases acting on RNA, they convert this adenosine to inosine. Okay, then the ribosomes in your body, they actually read these adenosine as the guanosine, okay, during the translation. So this actually there is a change in the resulting protein by altering the amino acid that is inserted, okay. So this is what generally is the change, and how it is actually useful is that the applications, it is useful in biology as well as evolution, where it offers genetic flexibility without changing the underlying DNA. Without making any changes to the DNA, the body itself is actually undergoing some kind of editing, okay. So this is what it is. Explains the adaptive protein functions in the changing environment. So it's going to change according to the environment and other reasons. This plays a very important role in the development of brain, immune responses as well as the plasticity. Next one, it is used in the biotechnology and medicines also, where it's a target for RNA based therapies, okay, specifically for neurological disorders, etc. Then for cancer research and drug development, and finally may inform synthetic biology tools for precision editing of transcriptions. So now the final article for the day will be the Northeast-Kolkata route via Myanmar, not Bangladesh. Okay. So here we will be discussing about the Kaladan multimodal because it actually involves the rail, the road as well as the sea. That is why. Okay. And then multimodal transit project. Okay. So, we will be discussing. So, recently the government has actually come up with the Shillong Silchar highway. So, let us see where these places are located, and it is a part of the Kaladan multimodal project. Okay. Important for both prelims as well as the mains examination, and for mains it is under GS paper 1, sorry, it is under GS paper 2, it is international relations. Okay, the next one, here we actually have an MCQ, that is arrange the following states in the anti-clockwise order starting from the north that border Myanmar. Okay, so this is important to understand Myanmar as well as how its border is across the Indian states. Okay, and also I hope you understand the free movement regime between both the sides. Next one. So, India is working on to strengthen the connectivity to the Northeast region, okay, India to the Northeast region by building a strategic corridor that reduces the dependence on the foreign routes, specifically Bangladesh, okay. So, this is a 167 kilometer 4-lane expressway that is going to come across Shillong and Silchar. So, this is actually a part of National Highway 6. It's a part of this particular mission, and it is also linked to India's Act East policy, where India wants to enhance the economic cooperation as well as the dialogue with the north, what to say, act towards the eastern nations. Okay. So, if you see about the Kaladan multimodal transit project, so this is actually a project that was struck between India and Myanmar in the year 2008. If you see here, this connects West Bengal to Myanmar. Okay, so here you have the Myanmar here. Okay, this is going to connect West Bengal to Myanmar. So, which place of Myanmar? The Sitwe port. The Sitwe port, which is present in the Rakhine state of Myanmar. This is going to connect Kolkata to the Sitwe port. Okay, so this is actually the project, and through that they can actually reach Mizoram. Okay, so thereby India is connected to the northeast. Understood? So let's read. It was conceived in 2008 jointly by India and Myanmar, aimed at connecting the port of Kolkata with the Sitwe in the Rakhine or the Arkan state, which would then be connected to Mizoram by road, as well as the Kaladan river, which flows by Paletwa. Don't worry, we will see in the next slide the map. Okay, so this is entirely funded by India and the Inland Waterways Authority of India, and this is actually appointed as the project development consultant. Okay, so funded by India, and the authority who actually takes place, or the development consultant who will actually take care or look after this particular project is what? The Inland Waterways Authority. Now we will move forward. So see here you have Kolkata. Here you actually have the sea route, which is around 550 kilometers connected to the Sitwe port of Myanmar. Can you see this? Over here you have the Kaladan river, which is connected to the place called as the Paletwa, and here this is around 158 kilometers. Then from there to here you have the highway, which is on around 130 kilometers, that is Paletwa to Kaletwa. Okay, so here, and this is the Indo-Myanmar border. Through this is going to connect you to Mizoram. Okay, so see here the components, it actually involves the sea, that is what I told you. Through the Bay of Bengal, it is the sea route, and then there is going to be a Kaladan, that is the river route, and then there is going to be a road component between Paletwa to Myanmar border and then to Mizoram. That is what is actually mentioned over here. Okay, next let us move forward. So see this particular map over here. So we already have this Kolkata to Sitwe. From here you have this Kaladan to Paletwa, and then Paletwa to this particular Kaletwa, and then it moves into Mizoram. So here you have the Mizoram, and currently we actually have this particular stretch, which is the proposed high speed corridor. So what does it say? Here all major infrastructure projects between Kolkata and Paletwa have been completed, and then the 4-lane road between Paletwa and the Zorinpuri, this remains incomplete, and India plans to upgrade the road infrastructure. So this is what is the article basically talking about. So why this is very, very important is what we need to understand. This is going to be an alternate sea route to via Myanmar. Okay, so this will be able to provide a transit under the Kaladan multimodal transit transport. This actually enables the movement of goods from Kolkata to reach the northeast via sea, road, rail, etc. Then reduces the dependence on the chicken neck, which is also called as the Siliguri corridor. See here, this is the Siliguri corridor, which is a 22-kilometer strip. Okay, so currently this is the only land connectivity between the northeast as well as the rest of India. Okay, so we have to stop our dependence over here because it is actually a tri-junction between these two countries as well. Okay, the next one, it strengthens India's Act East policy, where the corridor will actually make accessibility, or it will make it a gateway to the Southeast Asian nation. Thereby there's going to be trade and connectivity with other countries alongside Myanmar also. So this is why it's news. Now let's solve a mains practice question. So caste census demand was actually, it has borne more. Let us read. The caste census demand has borne more out of social necessity. It was born. Okay. Why people make these mistakes? I heard whether it is a born disease, waterborne disease, etc. It sounded like this. So caste census demand has borne more out of social necessity than the contemporary factional politics. So critically examine. Okay. So it was a social necessity. So please examine. Approach is, first of all, the demand of the census in India. This has been fueled by what? Both the social necessities, because there are a lot of inequalities persistent in the society, as well as your contemporary factional politics. Okay, moving forward, okay, so they haven't included the body here, so I will tell you, let us actually discuss from here. Just a minute. Okay, so this is actually the body. This is not the way forward. So why it is actually a necessity? So this is the body. Okay, because there has to be an equitable distribution of resources. There has to be addressing of the historical injustices, and also empowerment has to be given towards the marginalized communities. So that is why you need a caste census. And also, if you see the dimension of contemporary factional politics, it is a vote bank politics, okay, and identity politics, as well as redistribution of political power. And what happens here, there has been a criticism, however, despite it actually works both ways. There are criticisms with respect to the accuracy of data, the methodological constraints it actually has, as well as constitutional principles and alternative indicators. Okay, so again the conclusion is, while there has been a demand of caste census, and why this caste census eventually was rooted in the society is to address the social injustices, but eventually there were also the political interest that was associated with it. So it is crucial for us to critically evaluate the motivations behind this particular demand. Okay, so this is what it is. Now let us actually solve the MCQs. Which of the following principles are upheld by the recent Supreme Court ruling against the retrospective environmental clearances? Precautionary principle, yes, this was discussed in your article. Very important. Next one, intergenerational equity. This is also correct. Do you have eminent domain doctrine? Please do mention in the comment section what do you mean by eminent domain doctrine. Here we will not be discussing in detail. The next one is polluter pay principle. This was also included. So 1, 2 and 3 are included. So your answer is option B. Please do mention why option 4 is not included. Okay, if you were attentive in the previous day's class. Next one, with reference to the multimodal connectivity initiatives in India, consider the following. India-Bangladesh protocol route allows India to transport cargo to northeastern states via Bangladesh. Correct. Next one, Brahmaputra and Barak river systems are classified as national waterways. This is also correct. So this one, PM Gati Shakti master plan is limited to road and rail only. So mostly these only statements are wrong, okay. So the third one is actually wrong. So when third one goes away, then what happens? Only 1 and 2. Here your answer is option A. Next one is with reference to the Parasnath Hill. Don't read it like Prashant Hill, okay? It's Parasnath Hill issue. So with reference to the Parasnath Hill issue, consider the following statements. It is located in Jharkhand and it is sacred to both Jain as well as the Santal communities. Correct. The Places of Worship Act of 1991 allows for change in religious character of any place of worship. Really? Is it any place of worship? No, this is wrong. Next one, the PESA Act empowers the Gram Sabhas in the scheduled areas to regulate the religious practices. This is also correct. So 1 and 3 is correct. Your answer is option B. So following questions are from today's discussion. Please do visit our website, that is Narayana Navigator website, where you will actually have these MCQs that are actually mentioned over there. So please do visit the website in order to solve it, to introspect where are the areas that you have actually gone wrong. Please revisit the discussion and do pay attention. So I hope you actually enjoyed the session. For further updates as well as other interesting topics coming up, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you and take care.